Hello everyone, this is Brian, and welcome to Twilight Struggle Play the Experts, the game where I play the experts, and sometimes the experts play back. Now, I got a little bit of a different kind of a game today. I am playing against Row21, and the reason I thought this would be an interesting game is because this is the finals for the quarter to 3 tournament. And there's a number of different tournaments out there on different sites for if you want to get involved in tournament level Twilight Struggle play. And the reason I like this one is because it's played with a reasonably long time control. A lot of the other tournaments, like on Reddit and places like that, you have to play. You have to sit down and play the whole game in 2 hours, and I love to play the game like that. It's just that my personal schedule never works for that. I have to be able to stop and go do things with family, etc., etc. So I love this tournament, and today we're in the finals. We're in the finals. Now, unlike some of the other games I play on here, this one is being played with only 1 point for a 1-point handicap for the U.S. Now, I went over in the very first sort of tournament rules episode why I don't think that's enough. I think the Soviets have a bigger advantage than that. However, today that is the tournament conditions, and I have been fortunate enough to draw the Soviets, so I will be the beneficiary, I believe, of this not high enough handicap for the U.S. player. So anyway, here we are. That's how we come to be here today, and I am going to put down my starting influence. I don't have anything in my hand that makes me not want to put something down in either Yugoslavia or Austria. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and put my last point into Yugoslavia, so I have a toucher on Italy in case I feel like I need to get frisky down there. We'll see how his setup goes here, and then we'll talk about our hand and headlines. All right, so he has done a fairly normal setup and stuck his mere 1 point into Iran. And we need to look at our hand, figure out what we're going to do here. It's a pretty decent hand. We have 2 of the 4 cards. Now, they're both ones that kind of give him something, and we're going to have to make some decisions about what we're going to do that. Obviously, Marshall Plan is going to let him put a billion things in Europe. And if we give him Marshall Plan, then we can pretty much write off any hope we have there. On the other hand, U.S.-Japan gives him stuff in Japan. We've got Containment, which we may very well play as our very last action round so that he won't get very much containment out of it. Special Relationship, going to play that for ops, and he'll probably just get a guy somewhere. Eastern European Unrest will probably endure, and he'll rip some points out of Europe after we've decided whether we're, cooing Italy or not, etc. And the Indo-Pakistani War is good. It'll probably means he'll probably be less likely to be rushing right into Pakistan. Nasser would let us into Egypt early, and given the somewhat dearth of decent headline cards, of other decent headline cards, I should say, I think Nasser is actually a good headline for us, because if he's got the Middle East card, he'll be headlining it, and this would prevent us from losing 4 points to that. So let's see what happens. All right, he has gone with the Red Scare Purge, so he's just attacking our ops. Perfectly good headline for the Americans on turn 1. So we got our Nasser in there, and we did not receive a Middle East headline, which, is fine. Okay. So it's time for a big coup, and I've pretty much decided against going for Italy, because a 3-point Italy versus a 2-point Iran, I think I'm going Iran. And between the Marshall Plan or the U.S.-Japan Pact, I think I'm going to go ahead and let him have the U.S.-Japan and save Marshall Plan to either if we can if we get a chance to grab France with it, or maybe we'll just send that one off to space, because that's the card that, honestly, although it's worth one more op, it does us the most harm. So let's take a coup. All right, we roll a 5 and we get in. That's excellent. We have put some pressure on him, and he gets his guys in Japan, and let's see what happens. Okay, he's got a big card too. He's not got a bad hand, at least so far. So here comes the nuclear test ban right into Iran, and he rolls only a 3. So he chose to coup me right back immediately. Let's think about what that tells us. I mean, it means that we're going to get the last coup in Iran, and that he didn't get a big result. So that's good. You know, when I'm the U.S. and the Soviets get in big, you know, sometimes I'll kind of wait and see if I can, you know, just kind of rope-a-dope it there at DEFCON 4 for a while. But he went ahead and went in. I mean, does he desperately want into Asia, or is he worried about getting locked out of the Middle East? Is it because we played Nasser, and maybe it looked too frightening with us controlling 2 countries, so maybe we forced his hand in some way. I'm trying to think about what he's trying. I mean, if he wants to get into Pakistan, you know, I'm kind of happy for him to help himself and then maybe play the war. But I'm certainly not going to turn down to send it to DEFCON 2, which makes it easier to lock him out of coups next turn, and at the same time probably smush him. You know, I got a good chance of smushing him out of Iran now. So let's go ahead and endure the Eastern European unrest, and he gets to take our guy off, and let's see what we can do. Well, we rolled another 5. That is never a problem. If I could just keep rolling a few 5s, then that'll be good. So we are fully back into the Middle East. He rips us bodily back out of Yugoslavia. If I had been certain I was going to do that, I might not have put the guy in Yugoslavia, but we did it. And so he is going to go ahead and play a Korean War. Here comes the Korean War. And another 5. It's just 5 day. You know, you can't go wrong rolling 5s on your rolls as a Soviet. So we get 2 points. That's the best part of that. Now, we could have succeeded on a 5 or a 6. So yeah, he would have filled up South Korea if we had done that, if he had managed to not have us win the Korean War. But hey, we got 2 points. We got an extra guy. So that has set him back a little bit. Now, I think what I want to do more than I want to fight really hard back in Korea is I want to make the Middle East really, really scary and frightening for him. So right now, he does not even have a presence. And we have grabbed Lebanon, which is his easiest way to get a presence. So I feel like I've forced his hand, and he needs to play into Jordan now, or he is really going to be hurting hard. Let's see what he does. All right, so he gets his free point, puts it wisely into Canada, and here comes the Formosan resolution for ops. And yes, into Jordan he goes. So see, thing about that is, well, first of all, I can't coup it at all right now. I can't just grab it easily with, you know, a 3 card or something like I could if he had been able to get Lebanon. And he does have access, so it's going to help Israel not immediately fall to the very first Arab-Israeli war. You know, it gives him at least 1 helper country. And now he's at least got that presence in the Middle East, which is good for 3 points, which is a lot of points. So he needs that. But meanwhile, we now dominate the Middle East when this card does come up. And so I think the next time-sensitive thing, because it doesn't look like Asia's in danger of getting scored or scored for him or anything, and he doesn't seem to be making any move yet into Europe. So I am going to take this chance to try to get a space shot before he gets a space shot. And the card I most want to shoot into space is the Marshall Plan, because it is much harder to dispose of safely than Containment. Containment I'm happy to play as my last action action round there and just let him get 1 extra point, and then containment's gone forever. But if I play Marshall Plan, he's going to get 7 horrible points in Europe, and it's just going to be unrecoverable. So I'm going to try to get 2 victory points in exchange for him not getting 7 dudes. And we did it! We're in! Another excellent roll. Which, by the way, wasn't a 5. All right, and he is playing Asia Scoring, it looks like, for nothing, so he's gone ahead and accepted that. I guess, he would have been trying to dominate it if he hadn't lost the Korean War there. And what do we got? We got in the chat box is what we got. Yes! Yes, our first roll that wasn't a 5. We have an observant opponent here. So let's see. I think the first thing is to humorously crush his will. I always say, yes, I planned on that die roll. Cleverly planned the very moment of the die roll when I wasn't going to roll 5 again. That is my plan. All right, so what have we had happen here? Okay. So I think Fidel, again, with Fidel, I don't really, on turn 1, want to immediately incur dudes over in third world countries yet, third world battlegrounds yet, because I want to maintain the possibility of ditching the CIA card really extra easy later on if I draw it, and Fidel can always come back and scare people. But what I do want to do is get a point in Saudi Arabia, because that, in case he thinks of going in there and, getting him a real honest to goodness Middle Eastern battleground, well, that's going to make the future Muslim revolution just that little bit more painful, because he has to put 4 guys in, and then if he gets Muslim revolution, then I actually have a guy. That's it's a thing I like to do. And I find it really makes American players really extra afraid of either Muslim revolution or going into Saudi Arabia, one or the other. So I find it's a very effective use of 1 influence point. All right, so he's here with European Scoring for nothing, and that is excellent news for us, because he did not have enough ops to feel confident either grabbing France, or he had a go at South Korea, and it didn't work out for him. So he has got a kind of a low opsy hand. His big ops card he ended up using in the Middle East. So it's kind of interesting to consider, what would have happened. Maybe when it was DEFCON 4, remember I was talking about getting the second, the last coup or the second last coup. So maybe, what if he had gone into France and or spaced the Korean War, taken Korea and spaced, the Korean War, and then gone for a domination of, he had 2 regions that he could have maybe dominated there. And maybe he couldn't have dominated both. I mean, admittedly, that would have been when you're holding 2 scoring cards on turn 1, dominating 2 regions is a pretty heavy lift. But what if he had gone for one of those? I bet he could have dominated one of them with nuclear test ban for ops. So that's my kind of... it's good. Basically, I love the fact that we got past all of that, and he didn't get any dominations or actually any points out of his scoring cards. And we still have... And now we have a firm rather than a shaky domination of the Middle East. Because, I couldn't have moved into a lot of places if he was maintaining it at DEFCON 4. So anyway, I like how this is going. And we have come to the end. Had to go check. I hate how I always feel like I have to kind of drag that stupid bar off to the right every turn to make sure. I realize I can look up there, but it's so tiny that I forget that. So I'm going to go ahead and play containment for some ops, and I guess I'm just going to go ahead and keep colonizing it, because honestly, the Middle East is the only thing left to definitely score in the early war, so I think it's now time to fill it up and try to score even more points. It's good for the Soviets have the initiative now. I mean, I do certainly have the advantage, in terms of holding initiative, and I am just going to fill Libya up. I can't think of anything else I'd rather do than... Because the thing is, if I start filling up the Middle East, A, I'm going to get to score a domination and extra points. B, I might get to score some OPEX later. Now, I would love for Middle East to come up on turn 2 instead of turn 3, because that will make it so that I can count on a definite extra Middle East scoring in the mid-war. That would be the best thing. Score it on turn 2, score it again on turn 3, score OPEC on turn 4. Bam! That would be a blow from which he would probably not recover. All right, so what has he got? His last action round is a mere Truman Doctrine. He was hoping we would do something in Europe, I guess, but he gets it +1, so he's working his way up up toward Thailand and his eventual ownership, most likely, of South Korea, unless I go for the China card method. So that ends turn 1. And he did get all the ops he needed. I got all the ops I needed. So we go to DEFCON 3 and turn 2. And we have a look at our hand. Okay. Well, not a massive ops hand. And a couple of awkward cards. We're holding both Duck and Cover and CIA Created. Now, right now, CIA Created... Since we don't have anything in those battlegrounds, it could end up being a good thing for us. Bad news: we don't have decolonization or de-Stalinization. Now, Duck and Cover almost certainly go into space. I would like to hold on to 5-year plan so that I can hopefully get rid of a bad scoring card later. It does mean I have to be prepared for the possibility of having to play the CIA, but I do also have the China card if I want to play the China card. So let's see how that all works out. Because obviously, one good time to play the CIA card is when it's the very last action, played on action round 6, when I don't have anything in African or American battlegrounds, and then he doesn't get to win the game. He just gets to do a thing at DEFCON 2. So maybe we'll go that way if we feel extra safe. So I think what I'm going to headline here is the Cambridge 5, because nothing else is as juicy and sweet. I think I want to see if he's got a scoring card. Plus, this is the most likely time for him to play defectors at this point. It's basically 50-50 whether he has it. We've already disposed of some of the cards that would be better for him to play, like we're holding Duck and Cover. We've already played Marshall Plan, so there's really nothing he'd rather headline than defectors. And so I'm just going to go with kind of a not super great, not super bad card. I mean, if I was really ballsy, I could headline CIA Created, but let's just see what happens here. He defectored us. Okay, so yeah, hey, I could have headlined the CIA. That would have been apparently the best headline. So what to do next? I'm not very interested in Suez for the headline. I could do a war, but the problem is then he would get a coup. So the thing I've just noticed here is it's actually kind of hard. It's hard for me to get. So I can get a coup in, I want to get a coup. I could get it in Panama, but then I risk accidentally getting guys in. So I could coup it with a low thing, but if I coup it with a low thing, then if I coup it with Romanian abdication, then I'm only going to get 2 points. I'm going to get 1 point, not 2, from him having not gotten a coup. And I might actually get in. I guess I could coup South Africa with Romanian abdication and guarantee I wouldn't get in. And then I could do CIA later. But I'm actually thinking about taking a bit of a risk and just going ahead and because there's nothing in my hand I really care if he knows about right now. Don't have any scoring cards. Just go ahead and just get this thing resolved as the event, and then he probably won't have a successful coup, and it'll definitely be gone. Is that a terrible idea? I don't know. Let's try it. That's probably, I'll admit, maybe not the most masterful play on my part. Let's see what happens. Well, he rolled a 6. Okay, so that turns out to be the one thing. See, I was thinking anything but a 6. He doesn't get into the Middle East anyway, so why would I even care? Let's just get it out of the way and have it done. So he rolled a 6 just to teach me, and I'm going to just have to use my thing to cover him in Iran. Now, it's not super bad. Maybe we can suck him into a Pakistan situation. What's he going to do? So he's going to play. He is not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. He is going to go ahead and take that away from me. He's going to give me my 5 influence in Europe, so we don't have to worry about any more of these little weak 3 countries in Europe. We'll just put ourselves fully back in Europe. And we now need to make sure he doesn't get into every part of Asia. So I think what we're going to do is fill all of that stuff up, make sure we get 3 battlegrounds in Asia, if you see what I'm saying. And I went ahead and put the extra 5th China card point into Pakistan to make sure he doesn't get too tempted to go there. So good for him on that. And I don't feel as bad about playing the China card in turn 2 as the Soviets, because it means one way or the other, I'm not going to be able to use blockade to force anything out after this turn. So if he's manages to hold some destalinizations or things till next turn, then he's just going to get to do it, and the China card isn't going to help. But all right, so he has played 2 points into Thailand, which is where we would certainly expect him to go. I'm going to go ahead and fend off any possible domination of Asia by him. Play the Suez Crisis for that. Still feel pretty confident that I will at least dominate the Middle East. All right, he's got to deal with de Gaulle. And he's going to do it in a classic American way, which is to go ahead and accept the event and then play the full 3 influence into France. Good for him. So I have to decide, do I want to try to fight in France, or do I want to just go ahead and let him do it? If I try to fight in France, he doesn't have Truman Doctrine right now because he just used it. But then, it commits me to a duel to the death. And I don't have very high ops right now left in my hand that I can reasonably use. So I think instead I'm just going to start filling up more Middle Eastern countries, build up because it looks like Middle East probably isn't going to score, since he would have tried to score it as quickly as possible if he had it. So he's just using UN to... So he must have something he wants to hold there. If he's playing UN, that means he needs to do that to hold one. So he's holding one of our good cards for sure, because if, otherwise he'd use that to, he would have used that with de Gaulle or something to just take the thing over. So that's fine, but we're going to go ahead and get some more space race on, get duck and cover out of our hand, and we're along in space. That's lucky. We could space another thing if we want. Moving down the space track. So, okay, so he's spacing decolonization, so at least that's the good news, that he probably had both decolonization and destalinization this turn, and so he's spacing decolonization so that he can hold destalinization till next turn. So there's at least the hope we'll get decolonization sometime before the glaciers return. But it's not great news. It means we're probably not getting either of them next turn for some nice spreading out. So what we're going to do now is notice that he has a military op and I don't have any ops. And I would much rather gain a point than lose a point for military ops. And if I use the Indo-Pakistan War in India, I have a 50-50 chance of getting 2 more points, which it is definitely always my philosophy to grab victory points now. So we are going to grab victory points now. And with success, we got another 2. So, and effectively, that's kind of a 3rd victory point because he's not going to get any more military ops because we have no non-battlegrounds that he can coup us in legally. So he's playing independent Reds for ops and getting himself into Africa, which is a good thing for him to do in a reasonably safe place. Americans should always be trying to make sure they don't get nothing in Africa. And we get our point for his single lack of military op. So, yeah, I think on the whole, I probably should have saved the CIA and a number of things would have gone better. But we go to turn 3 with 6 points on our scoring card, so that's good. The reshuffle occurs, and we get a little passel of miscellaneous cards into our hand, and we go to turn 3. And going to turn 3 means that it is time for your homework. So your homework, of course, is to figure out what we should headline and what our plan for the turn should be. And we know since the reshuffle came up, we know that he has certain cards. And the ones that I can kind of think of off the top of my head that he definitely has are socialist governments, Comic-Con, Destalinization, and NATO. And in fact, I think Destalinization was the card that he saved through the turn there. I think he has one other card, and I can't think of it. I'm pretty sure it's not a war card. It's not obviously CIA. It's not Marshall Plan. It's not a 4 card. All 5 of the 4 cards got played. So, anyway, I can't think of it right now, and I never happened to think of it before. I did, in fact, play myself to turn 3. So you can have that as a little extra homework assignment. Anybody who can think of what it is gets an extra little gold star. Now, we know that he knows that he knows we know that he knows that we know that he has that he knows we have the 5-year plan, the captured Nazi scientists, the mighty Romanian abdication, the once fearsome but no longer all that important blockade, and the oft wondered about Middle Eastern scoring card that I sure would have loved to have score last turn instead of this turn, but it's going to score this turn. So that's what he knows we have. He doesn't realize that we've gotten a reach around on old Fidel, and the Formosan resolution is back. So, your assignment, figure out what we're going to headline and then what we're going to do, and we will see you next time on Twilight Struggle, Play the Experts.